Installer setting introduction. Once the installer finishes the physical installation of the product, the installer needs to customize the detail functions and user preference for each specific installation case through the installer setting menu. Therefore, understanding and setting the installer setting menu will not only help to take full advantage of our product, but also to avoid malfunction of the system. Please note that in this instruction video, some menu may not be available depending on the product, and/or the name of the menu may be different. In this case, please refer to the installer manual for details. How to enter installer setting. In the main menu screen, press the left and right button to move to the setting category, and then press the up button for 3 seconds, which then will display the password input screen. Initial password is the software version number of the remote controller, which can be found on the lower right-hand side of the screen. For example, if the software version number is 3.06.2a, the password is 3062. Input the password and press the OK button to enter the installer setting list. Configuration. Configuration comprises the control setting for the peripheral devices and accessories. Under configuration, the controls related to the temperature sensor, the booster heater, the second circuit function, the external pump, the slave remote controller, and the LG Therma V configurator can be customized. Select temperature sensor. Therma V can be operated according to air temperature, water temperature, or air plus water temperature. By clicking Select Temperature Sensor menu, you can choose the control method as you wish. The default setting is water temperature. Should you need to change, select the temperature sensor category and press the OK button to move to the details screen. There are 3 options under Control Standard category: water, air, and air plus water. And sensor location is activated only if you select Control Standard as air or air plus water. In the sensor location menu, you can choose between 2 options: remote controller and indoor unit. Remote controller option means to use air temperature sensor embedded in the standard remote controller. Indoor unit option means to use external air temperature sensor sold separately. Use heating tank heater. Use heating tank heater setting is to determine how to utilize the booster heater for hot water operation. The HW heater sets whether to use the booster heater, or use only for disinfection work, or not use the booster heater. Priority sets whether to operate the hot water operation with mainly refrigerant cycle, or to operate the refrigerant cycle and the booster heater to reach the target temperature. Delay time is the time from the start of the hot water operation to the start of the booster heater operation, and it is linked to the booster heater delay time of the HW time setting. It can be selected from 10 to 1440 minutes. Mixing circuit. Mixing circuit is to use second circuit function. There are 3 options: not use, heat and cool, and heat. Valve closing time. Valve closing time means the time it takes for the mixing valve to fully close, and you can select from 60 to 999 seconds. The default setting is 240 seconds. You have to set this closing time as per the valve specification. Hysteresis. Hysteresis is the marginal temperature used to determine the operation and stop of the compressor according to the target temperature. It can be set from 1 to 5 degrees Celsius. Cutoff temperature. This limits the temperature for second circuit during heating operation. This can be selected between 20 and 65 degrees Celsius. And the default value is 40 degrees Celsius. There are 2 pump settings, one for heating and one for cooling. It is to determine how to operate the water pump when the compressor is stopped. By using type, you can choose whether to operate the water pump continuously or at a certain interval period when the compressor is stopped. On means the duration of the pump running time, and off means the duration of the pump stop time. It can be selected from 1 to 60 minutes for both on and off. Use external pump. Use external pump is to mark whether the external pump is installed or not. If an external pump is installed, it should be set to use the external pump with our internal pump simultaneously. With heat and cool, the external pump operates so that water only flows to the underfloor, and the external pump will not operate during the HW heating operation. With circuit 1, the external pump turns on in accordance with the Therma on operation status of circuit 1, while second circuit function is activated. For Therma off operation status of circuit 1, external pump operates periodically unless the status changes to Therma on status. RMC Master Slave. RMC Master Slave function allows you to select which remote controllers to set as master and slave, where 2 remote controllers are used for 1 unit. Some functions, such as installer setting, are restricted in the slave controller, and the user functions are only available in the slave controller. However, when the system is controlled based on the air temperature, the air temperature sensor of the master remote controller is overridden, and the air temperature sensor on the slave remote controller is used for control parameter. LG Therma V configuration. LG Therma V configuration is a function to load or save the information set in the LG Heating Configurator PC tool from the micro SD card. Read data reads the information from the micro SD card and apply them to the installer settings on the product. And save data saves the installer setting information of the product in the micro SD card. General. General comprises the control setting for the water pump and password reset. Under General, the controls related to the water pump forced operation, the pump prerun and overrun time, the water pump control method, and password reset can be customized. Forced operation. When product is not used for a long time, the pump is forced to operate to prevent the pump failure and freezing of plate heat exchanger. Operation cycle is to set how long it can be remained stopped until water pump needs the forced operation. Operation time sets the time duration for the forced operation, and it can be selected from 1 to 10 minutes. Pump prerun, overrun. Pump prerun, overrun sets the delay time of the starting and stopping of the water pump operation. Pump prerun is the time the water pump starts running before the compressor running. Pump overrun is the delay time for the water pump to stop after the compressor stops. You can select from 1 to 10 minutes for both. The default values are 1 minute. Water flow control. Water flow control sets how the water pump operates in the system. Control method. Water flow control method can be selected from one of optimal flow rate, pump capacity, fixed flow rate, and fixed delta T. The default setting is optimal flow rate, and with this setting, the water pump is automatically controlled at the optimal flow rate required according to the desired temperature. Thus, it helps minimize the energy consumption. From now on, each setting will be explained in detail. Pump capacity. With pump capacity setting, you can set the water pump capacity from 10 to 100% to fix it as a single value. The default value is 100%. And keep in mind to set the water capacity considering actual head loss of the system in order to ensure optimal running condition. Fixed flow rate. Fixed flow rate for heat, cool, and DHW can be customized in order to secure a stable water outlet temperature. They can be set from 8 to 26 LPM, and the default value is 26 LPM. For 5 kW and 7 kW model, this value needs to be changed considering rated flow rate. Fixed delta T. Fixed delta T regulates the gap temperature between inlet and outlet water temperature for heat, cool, and DHW. The system automatically changes the flow rate in order to ensure a stable delta T. They can be set from 5 to 13 degrees Celsius, and the default values are 5 degrees Celsius. Password reset. Password reset is to reset the password to enter the installer setting list. After the resetting, the password is automatically reset to 0000. Room heating. Room heating sets the space heating operation system. Room heating menu consists of the control reference water temperature position, the set temperature, the hysteresis, the water pump operation during Therma off in heating mode, the Screed dry operation. Heating temperature setting. Heating temperature setting function is to decide whether to control based on the inlet temperature or the outlet temperature, and the default setting is outlet. Air heating set temperature. For the heating mode, the heating temperature can be controlled based on the indoor air or water temperature. If your heating mode is controlled by indoor air temperature, you can determine the maximum and minimum temperature by using air heating set temperature function. You can set the minimum temperature between 16 and 22 degrees Celsius, and the maximum temperature between 24 to 30 degrees Celsius. The default setting for minimum and maximum are 16 and 30 degrees Celsius respectively. Water heating set temperature. If your heating mode is controlled by water temperature, you can determine the maximum and minimum temperature by using water heating set temperature. You can set the minimum temperature range between 24 and 30 degrees Celsius in case the backup heater is not used, and between 15 and 34 degrees Celsius with the backup heater. The maximum temperature range is between 35 and 65 degrees Celsius. The default minimum temperature is 20 and 15 degrees Celsius for without backup heater and with the backup heater respectively. The default maximum temperature is 55 degrees Celsius. Hysteresis heating water. Hysteresis heating water is a setting for marginal temperature to prevent frequent turn on and off after it reaches the target temperature, when Therma V is controlled based on the water temperature. When the current temperature reaches the target temperature plus hysteresis, the compressor stops. And when the temperature comes down again below the target temperature minus hysteresis, the compressor operates again. It can be selected from -9 to 0 degrees Celsius for Therma on, and 0 to 4 degrees Celsius for Therma off. And default for Therma on and off are -2 and 2 degrees Celsius respectively. Hysteresis room air heating. Hysteresis room air heating is a setting for marginal temperature to prevent frequent turn on and off after it reaches the target temperature when Therma V is controlled based on the air temperature. When the current temperature reaches the target temperature plus hysteresis, the compressor stops. And when temperature comes down again below target temperature minus hysteresis, the compressor operates again. It can be set from -3 to 0 degrees Celsius for Therma on, and 0 to 4 degrees Celsius for Therma off. And default for Therma on and off are -0.5 and 1.5 degrees Celsius respectively. Pump setting in heating. It is to determine how to operate the water pump when the compressor is stopped in heating mode. By using type, you can choose whether to operate the water pump continuously or at a certain interval period when the compressor is stopped. On means the duration of pump running time, and off means the duration of pump stop time. It can be selected from 1 to 60 minutes for both on and off. Heater on temperature. Heater on temperature is a reference outdoor temperature when to start the backup heater operation. It can be selected from -25 to 18 degrees Celsius, and default value is -5 degrees Celsius. Screed drying. Screed dry setting is to help with curing the new cement floor after construction by using floor heating for a certain period of time. The curing process consists of 11 steps. However, it is not necessary to start from step 1. You can start anywhere from step 1 to 11 by selecting the desired starting step under step category. Maximum curing temperature can be defined between 35 and 55 degrees Celsius under the max temp category. Lastly, choose how long you want to hold step 8 stage. You may hold this stage from anywhere between 1 and 30 days. The detailed temperature profile is shown on the screen. This information is also available in the installation manual. Room cooling. Room cooling sets the space cooling operation system. Room cooling menu consists of the cooling reference water temperature position, the set temperature, the hysteresis, the water pump operation during Therma off in cooling mode, and water supply off temperature. Cooling temperature setting. Cooling temperature setting function is to select whether to control based on the inlet water temperature or outlet water temperature, and the default setting is outlet. Air cooling set temperature. For the cooling mode, the cooling temperature can be controlled based on the indoor air or water temperature. If your cooling mode is controlled by indoor air temperature, you can determine maximum and minimum temperature by using air cooling set temperature function. You can set the minimum temperature between 16 and 22 degrees Celsius, and the maximum temperature between 24 and 30 degrees Celsius. The default setting for minimum and maximum are 16 to 30 degrees Celsius respectively. Water cooling set temperature. If your cooling mode is controlled by water temperature, you can determine the maximum and minimum temperature by using water cooling set temperature function. You can set the minimum temperature range between 16 and 20 degrees Celsius in case the fan coil unit is not used, between 5 and 20 degrees Celsius with the fan coil unit. The default minimum temperature is 18 and 5 degrees Celsius for no fan coil unit and fan coil unit respectively. The default maximum temperature is 24 degrees Celsius. Water supply off temperature during cooling. This is to set the minimum temperature for underfloor cooling operation to prevent the condensation development. When fan coil unit is selected as not used status, the stop temperature is activated, and it can be set from 16 to 25 degrees Celsius. The default setting is used with stop temperature of 18 degrees Celsius. Hysteresis cooling water. Hysteresis cooling water sets the marginal temperature to prevent frequent turn on and off after it reaches the target temperature when Therma V is controlled based on the water temperature. When the current temperature reaches the target temperature plus hysteresis, the compressor stops. And when temperature comes down again below the target temperature minus hysteresis, the compressor operates again. It can be selected from 0 to 3 degrees Celsius for Therma on, and minus 3 to 0 degrees Celsius for Therma off. And default for Therma on and off are negative 0.5 and 0.5 degrees Celsius respectively. Hysteresis room air cooling. Hysteresis room air cooling sets the marginal temperature to prevent frequent turn on and off after it reaches the target temperature when Therma V is controlled based on room air temperature. When the current temperature reaches the target temperature plus hysteresis, the compressor stops. And when temperature comes down again below the target temperature minus hysteresis, the compressor operates again. It can be selected from 0 to 3 degrees Celsius for Therma on and negative 3 to 0 degrees Celsius for Therma off. And default for Therma on and off are negative 0.5 and 0.5 degrees Celsius respectively. Pump setting and cooling. It is to determine how to operate the water pump when the compressor is stopped in cooling mode. By using type, you can choose whether to operate the water pump continuously or at a certain interval period when the compressor is stopped. On means the duration of pump running time, and off means a duration of pump stop time. It can be selected from 1 to 60 minutes for both on and off. Auto mode. With auto mode, the temperature profile of outdoor and indoor temperature for seasonal auto mode is customized. In this mode, Therma V automatically changes the operation mode between heating and cooling according to the outdoor temperature, and automatically calculates the target temperature for the heating and cooling operation. Seasonal auto temperature. With mode setting, you can decide whether to use seasonal auto mode for heating only or for both heating and cooling. And in the outdoor temperature, you can set the upper and lower limit of the outdoor temperature for heating and cooling respectively. Lower limit for heating, out 1. Upper limit for heating, out 2. Lower limit for cooling, out 3. Upper limit for cooling, out 4. After selecting the value you want to change, you can increase or decrease the value with the arrow buttons. In the target temperature menu, you can graphically see the seasonal auto mode target temperature setting for each outdoor temperature, and you can customize each value. Then, Therma V will operate automatically according to this operation curve while in seasonal auto mode. Domestic hot water. Domestic hot water sets the domestic hot water heating operation system. This menu consists of the set temperature range of the HW tank, setting of value related to disinfection of the HW tank, general settings for the HW heating operation, and heater priority and DHW time setting. DHW set temperature. DHW set temperature menu is to determine the minimum and maximum temperature for the domestic hot water tank operation. The minimum temperature can be selected between 30 and 40 degrees Celsius, and the maximum temperature can be selected between 50 and 80 degrees Celsius. When DHW heater, cold booster heater, is in not use status, the maximum temperature will be limited. Tank disinfection setting number 1. Tank disinfection setting number 1 and 2 are available to set the water heating operation to disinfect the water tank. In the tank disinfection setting 1, you can decide whether to use this disinfection function or not with the disinfection active option. And start date means the day of the week to operate the weekly operation. And start time means the time it starts the operation. Tank disinfection setting 2. In the tank disinfection setting 2, you can set 3 things: the maximum temperature for the disinfection, the duration time, and the forced end time. Maximum temperature is the target temperature for disinfection operation and can be set between 60 and 80 degrees Celsius. Duration time is the time maintained after the target temperature is reached. You can choose between 5 and 60 minutes. Forced end time is to forcefully cancel the work because the target temperature is not reached after a certain period of time. This time can be set between 1 and 12 hours. The default setting for maximum temperature, duration time, forced end time are 70 degrees Celsius, 10 minutes, and 1 hour respectively. The temperature profile during the DHW tank disinfection operation is presented on the screen. For details, please refer to the installation manual. Tank setting 1. Tank setting 1 and 2 are for setting up the tank operation condition and for priority setting between space heating and domestic hot water heating. Tank setting 1 sets 2 parameters: minimum temperature and comp limit temperature. Minimum temperature represents the gap of water temperature between starting water temperature and comp limit temperature. This value can be selected from 1 to 30 degrees Celsius. From the starting temperature, the compressor will operate to heat the water until it reaches comp limit temperature. This is the maximum temperature that can be reached by a compressor cycle without a booster heater, and the selectable range is between 40 and 58 degrees Celsius. Tank setting 2. In tank setting 2, you can set the hysteresis and the heating priority. Hysteresis is a marginal temperature to prevent frequent turn on and off after it reaches the target temperature. If hysteresis is reached, the booster heater stops, and when temperature comes down again and reaches the target temperature, the booster heater operates again. It can be from 2 to 4 degrees Celsius. Heating priority is to set the priority of whether to operate the DHW or floor heating operation first when operation conditions are satisfied. The temperature profile during the domestic hot water heating is presented on the screen. For details, please refer to the installation manual. Heater priority. Heater priority function is to determine whether to use booster heater and/or backup heater for hot water operation. You can select whether to operate the booster heater and the backup heater together or just the booster heater. DHW time setting. DHW time setting function is to manage the hot water operation and floor heating operation. Active time is the maximum time duration which hot water operation can be continued without space heating, and it can be selected from 5 to 95 minutes. Stop time is to secure the time duration for the minimum space heating operation, and it can be selected from 0 to 600 minutes. Solar thermal system. In order to use Therma combined with solar thermal system, you have to set parameters in this setting. In solar collector set temperature, you can set minimum and maximum solar collector temperature at which the solar thermal system can be operated. And in DHW set temperature, you can set maximum temperature of domestic hot water tank that can be reached by solar thermal system. TH on off variable solar is the temperature difference between current solar thermal temperature and DHW tank temperature for start and stop. In the boost heater menu, you can select whether or not to use DHW tank booster heater. And in the solar pump flush schedule and solar pump flush setting, you can reserve the schedule for solar pump flush operation and set the number of cycle and duration. At last, you can perform the test run for solar pump using solar pump test run menu. Service. Service menu consists of the water pump test run and frost protection temperature. Pump test run. Pump test run is a test run function for the water pump. With this function, you can test the functionality of the air vent valve and the integrity of the piping. Also, you can adjust the pump capacity for the system to meet the appropriate level through repeated test runs. Once the test run starts, the water pump operates for 1 hour and displays the pump test run sign. Frost protection temperature. Frost protection temperature function is used to set the offset temperature for the freeze protection logic. To enable this menu, first, set the diff switch software 1 number 8 on the indoor unit PCB to on, and remove the bridge at CNANTI-SW. Since the freezing temperature of water is lowered with the help of added antifreeze in the system, reference temperature for Therma V's freeze protection logic can be also lowered. This offset temperature varies based on the concentration of the antifreeze. Please refer to the installation manual for more detail. Connectivity. Connectivity consists of settings for control accessories for Therma V. In the connectivity menu, there are settings related to dry contact, address setting for the central controller, setting for connection terminals such as CNCC or CNEXT, setting for third-party boiler and meter interface, energy state, etc. Dry contact mode. Dry contact mode is used only when the dry contact device is separately purchased and installed. In this menu, you can choose the operation method once the dry contact sends the on signal to our product. For example, when on signal is received, In auto setting, Therma V will turn on automatically while releasing the hard lock. On the other hand, in manual setting, Therma V will remain turned off and only hard lock will be released. In addition, during dry contact off status, Therma V will be off with hard lock. Central Control Address. Central Control Address is to set the central control address of the indoor unit when the central controller is connected. It can be set from 00 to FF, and indoor units with the same central controller must not have duplicated addresses. CNCC. CNCC is the input if the dry contact is installed or not. Depending on the selection, dry contact can be automatically recognized or selected to use or neglect the installed dry contact. CNEXT. With CNEXT setting, the product operates according to the external contact signal input. Not used means that the input signal through CNEXT is not received. And simple operation means that the input signal through CNEXT is used to decide to start and stop. Simple dry contact is the same as using the input signal through CNEXT to start and stop. But additionally, when the unit is stopped, the lock is set. Single emergency stop means that the input signal through CNEXT is used as an emergency stop function. Third-party boiler. If you want to combine third-party boiler heat source with Therma V, for instance, external boiler, you will have to set this function. First, select Use, and then choose whether third-party boiler operates manually or automatically, depending on the outdoor temperature. If it is selected as manual, the menu for boiler operation is displayed in the user setting. User can control it manually. On the other hand, if it is selected as auto, the third-party boiler operates automatically by comparing the outdoor temperature and preset temperature. When the outdoor temperature is higher than the set temperature for third-party boiler plus Hysteresis, the boiler stops running and starts Therma V after 45 seconds. Meter interface. Meter interface is used to monitor the power consumption and heat production by using the meter interface module. If you want to use meter interface module, set Modbus address to B0 or B1. Otherwise, you can keep it not used. In the unit menu, you can set the coefficient values for converting pulse signal to electricity. Port 1 to 3 is for the pulse input of the watt-hour meter installed in order to monitor the power consumption. Port 3 can be used when monitoring the power consumption of hot water operation is necessary. Port 4 is the setting for the pulse input of the calorie meter installed for calorie monitoring. Energy state. Energy state function is to control the production according to the energy state of ESS or electrical grid. When the state of ESS or electrical grid is transmitted to the Therma V, it automatically changes the target temperature of heating, cooling, and domestic hot water by setting offset value according to the energy state. It is possible to select either signal mode or Modbus mode according to the communication type between the product and the ESS or grid. Signal mode is used when interlocking the smart grid with the product and controls the product using energy state from ES1 to ES4. Modbus mode is mainly used when interlocking the product with the ESS using Modbus and controls the product using the energy state of ES2 and ES5 to ES8. With the energy state definition, you can customize the offset values for heating, cooling, DHW target temperature of ES5 to ES8. In case of the ES3 and ES4, the offset values cannot be changed. However, in the digital input assignment menu, you may change ES3 and ES4 to any other energy state among ES5 to ES8. The summarized table for ES1 to ES8 for signal mode and Modbus mode is presented on the screen. For details, please refer to the installation manual. Thermostat control type. Thermostat control type is a menu to set whether to receive heating-cooling signal or heating-cooling DHW heating signal based on the thermostat type when the thermostat is connected. Information. Information consists of menus to check the operation status and history of the product. In the information menu, you can check the operation time of the water pump, the indoor unit, the flow rate inside of the product, and the operation history. Pump operation time and indoor unit operation time. With this function, you can check the operation time of the main water pump and indoor unit as an accumulation. It helps to estimate the mechanical life of them. Current flow rate. Current flow rate displays the current real-time flow read by the built-in flow sensor. You can instantly check if a pipe or strainer is clogged or not. The flow rate can be adjusted to the proper level the system needs. Data logging. Data logging contains the operation status such as date, time, operation status, target temperature, water inlet and outlet temperature, along with error code if an error code occurs in the product.